ordinance, like every other city in Connecticut has, to effectively control blight with direct fines from the city?
Simple answer is yes. The more complicated one is how we go about implementing that. This summer I had a chance to walk around the neighborhoods of Harbor Shores and Golden Hill with the neighbors, and they pointed out a number of blighted properties which, quite frankly, are affecting their own property values. And I think we have to put an ordinance on the books that addresses that, but also an ordinance that is going to be effective and one that will be enforced. And that's been the problem with the laws that are currently on the books. It's an enforcement problem. But working with the neighbors, I believe we can achieve a good ordinance. There's some good ones out there modeled. Stanford has a good one. I think we can incorporate all those and come up with one that will be enforced. And it's not to go after the property owner whose property has fallen to neglect. If you're elderly or sick and your property is getting neglected, that wouldn't be the type of ordinance we want to go after those people. It's the ones that are consciously leaving their properties in disrepair and using their properties illegally. We saw a number of properties where they have garages, they have landscaping equipment not supposed to be there, and it's a blight on the neighbors. And the people in those neighborhoods, there's two neighborhoods that I walked with that afternoon, have real concerns, and their property values are being affected by it. So I believe, yes, we have to have an ordinance, a good ordinance on the books, and I think it's one of the priorities for the next council to address. I told the neighbors that it wasn't going to work on one this term because it was too late in the term. I didn't want to rush one through just to pat myself on the back and say, hey, look at this, and did a nice blight ordinance for you, because it would have been rushed through and not done the right way. So I think the next council be one of the priorities for the ordinance committee and the health, welfare, public safety committee, quite frankly, to address.
Thank you, Ms. Duleep.
Well, not surprisingly, I take a teacher's approach to that question. Just like you would not want me to use the same teaching methods with every single child in a classroom, including yours, I think it's more important to figure out why that particular property is not keeping up appearances, so to speak. Norwalk being a small town, you all know the tragedy that my family faced last year. My first job was at my mom's restaurant, Gunga Restaurant on Wall Street. We were supposed to have a fine Ecuadorian or Peruvian food restaurant come in there, and unfortunately, the tenant had other ideas. Now, when we got complaints about the paper, I actually told somebody, I said, look, my mom is an artist. She gets awards for her use of color. Don't you think it's painful for her that she's not allowed to tell the tenant to take that ugly newspaper out of the windows because of their lease agreement? And now, here we sit. The Hour covered it. Over a year after the arson, after the arsonist was captured, questioned for 4 months, and booted out of this country, what did we get as far as help from the mayor? We got complaints that there was ugly paper in the window. There was a singed sign for our now Governor Beloy in the window. Well, we were a little busy tending to the woman who made this bracelet for me, otherwise known as the woman who had to jump from a fire onto the train tracks. It's about priorities. Now, as far as sometimes the blight might be a health risk. Sometimes it might be, hey, kids who want to have a crack den or something. Sometimes it might be an elderly person who needs help. You need to figure out what is causing the problem and then find the appropriate solution. There are probably ordinances that do take care of the individual problems, and if there aren't, then you can craft one for a particular situation. But you don't want to just say one blight ordinance for everyone.
Thank you. Mr. Hempstead.
Yes. It's finding balance. I certainly believe in private property rights of people and understand that somebody's art, some people like that vintage steel in certain positions rusting out there and called a piece of art, while other people like the statues that are called done in the 1800s. So it's in the eye of the beholder what blight is and what blight is not. So in formulating one, we need some guidelines, we need to formulate one. I do agree with that, but it's a question of making sure it's restrictive enough for the center. It can't be allowed for wild interpretations. We have a lot of seniors in this town, especially now more than ever. We're paying good hard tax in town. We've been living on pensions and Social Security that haven't gone much up for the last 5 years. So I've seen some yards that we've gone around and knocked on doors. The grass is probably a lot longer than it needs to be. Christmas lights still may be up, or the paint might be slightly peeling from it. Some people would say that blight. I say this person needs help. So in drafting our ordinances, we got to make sure, A, it's balanced, it's fair, we've heard that all before. But it's also taking in that, how are we going to enforce it? Because without the enforcement end of this, it's meaningless. And the problem is, too many times, people in office put get an ordinance in place that requires a fine, there's nobody there to issue the fine. So we need some high definition. I also took the same walk, I didn't think the walk was done, but I did meet with the neighbors with that. John and I did talk about this a few times, about trying to get this going this term. So something needs to be done, but it's got to be balanced, make sure we don't take away rights, we don't pick on the wrong people, all right? And to make sure that if people are in that particular situation, maybe there's something the city do to provide them help. I don't want to see elderly slack with some kind of, we're going to come in and cut your lawn, paint your house, and we're going to send you a bill. That's also unfair too.
Thank you, Mr. Pena.
In terms of ordinance, I think you have to be a little bit respectful, sensitive, and work with different neighborhood associations, different leaders in respective districts, and hear what constituents have to say. I think that we do have to enforce some of these ordinances, and I think that we have a lot of city officials driving around town all the time, and they see a lot. Building inspectors, other city officials, they see a lot out there, and I think that it's all about communication. If we can work better together, to help clean up our city of certain things that just don't look good anymore. I think that it's about communication, about just making our city a little bit more beautiful, utilizing our resources, making sure that we, just liven our city up a little bit, and not just stay with the old stuff. I think we need to, enforce them and work together in a more cohesive manner, so that way we can, achieve common goals.